protect the Constitution, the rule of law, Minnesota's rights, and the people of the state of Minnesota, and, of course, the fair administration of justice. Christian Castro is not above the law, and Greg Abbott isn't either.
Abbott is now facing orders from a federal judge to respond to the lawsuit by Monday. I'm going to bring in Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett of Texas. And with me at the table, MS Now senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin is here. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. Why do you think Governor Abbott is refusing this request?
Well, Governor Abbott always pretends to be a great law and order person, and he's acting in a very lawless way. What you just showed with Attorney General Keith Ellison, he was absolutely correct on all points. I think Governor Abbott likes to present himself as the leading force against immigrants in this state. He's done so in many particulars. He's in the midst of an election. His numbers are sinking. And so once again, he can present himself as the great anti-immigrant when what he needs to do is just to simply follow the law, including a unanimous United States Supreme Court decision that his job as governor is to follow the law, sign the warrant. On earlier this week, he had a press conference in which he said he would not do that and that he lacked confidence in Governor Walz. Yet a week ago today, a warrant to return someone to Minnesota was forwarded to another county in Texas, just as Governor Abbott has done routinely in the past. This case distinguished itself because this is another example of violence by ICE, and Governor Abbott just wants to position himself on the other side of that instead of following the law.
Lisa, can you help me understand what the governor's legal obligations are here?
Yeah, the governor has a legal obligation both under the federal constitution and under a congressionally enacted statute that sort of effectuates the extradition clause of the Constitution, that when he is presented with an effective warrant and a demand for extradition by the chief authority of one state, to produce that person upon a lawfully executed warrant. There isn't a lot of discretion or wiggle room here. And of course, there are going to be people on the conservative side who say, but isn't this just like those abortion cases in which one state has criminalized abortion and has demanded the extradition of a physician in another state who's been prescribing abortion medication to someone living in a state that outlaws abortion? And I would submit to you, no, there is a difference, because there, the home state governor is saying what that person has done in my home state is perfectly legal in the home state. Here, by contrast, Christian Castro was in Minnesota physically. He is alleged to have committed a crime physically in Minnesota. There is no justification for withholding his extradition. It's not as if he was in Texas, and Greg Abbott can make the argument that what he did is lawful under Texas law. There really isn't any basis to withhold the extradition. And what's particularly weird here, I just want to fixate on this if I can. In the papers that Minnesota has submitted in its lawsuit, basically says that the state extradition coordinator in Texas was saying that she hoped to have papers signed as soon as June 24th. And then something changed. That state extradition coordinator called the governor's office and said, you have a new point of contact. It's the deputy counsel in the governor's office. And then they stopped returning phone calls and stopped explaining. And you can see in these papers the effort that Attorney General Ellison's office and the Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty have made to get Greg Abbott to comply without any explanation. They didn't do this out of anger. They did so sorrowfully after a lot of work to try and get Christian Castro extradited to Minnesota.
And a lot of frustration, which was apparent when you were listening to the AG. Congressman, I just want to ask you real quick, this is all tied up in the president's mass deportation agenda. There's new polling. I'm not sure if you saw it. It's from Politico. It shows that half of Americans, including nearly a quarter of Trump's 2024 voters, say the president's mass deportation campaign is too aggressive. This used to be a winner for Republicans. It's a big part of the reason this president was elected. They have quickly made it a loser, and I wonder how you see that playing out in Texas.
Well, I think it really is shifting. It's not unlike what happened during President Trump's first term, when people saw babes literally being pulled from their mom's arm at the border, and that began to shift opinion somewhat. And then the hysteria has built up over the Biden administration and been whipped up daily by Stephen Miller and President Trump. It's still a big political issue here, and I think this governor thinks that it's the issue that will carry him to success and re-election in November. I believe that more and more Texans, just like the rest of the country, are seeing through this and saying, you know, it's one thing to do what Trump said about getting the bad ones. But when you take someone out of our community who's making a real contribution, who's working hard, paying their taxes, has their kids in school, that doesn't help any of us. In fact, it's contributing in Texas and in much of the country to a significant labor shortage in many of the service industries and in home construction, raising prices for us because there are not enough people to do these jobs that we need to have accomplished.
Tell that to Scott Besson, who is out there talking to cable news about how all these new jobs are available because of mass deportation. Lisa Rubin, thank you so much for joining us. Congressman, I'm going to ask you to stay with us. When we return, I want to